focus? I mean, after breaking through and proving that you can do it at this level,
Yeah.
what areas? I know you want the whole product to be better, but are there certain areas you're focusing on?
Yeah, for sure. You want to get better, in every area, but specifically, with the bat, you want to put together quality at bats, continue to do that. I felt like I kind of got into a groove, there in the middle of the season and even towards the end. So I think just continuing to, show that I can hit the ball to all fields and want to be able to consistently do that. Obviously keep all the other things that I had going on during the season, whether it was defense, base running, stuff like that. Keep that at a high level and continue, like I said, to put together good at bats and show that you can hit the ball in the air a little bit more and on a line too.
Michael, does the lead up into spring training feel any different than last year, just based on kind of the success you had at the big league level last year, and just kind of a better feel for the organization?
Definitely a better feel for the organization for sure. But I think, you got to keep the same mindset of just going into spring training and doing what I need to do and taking care of what I do. Bring my best foot forward to the field every day. And controlling what I can control, and having that mindset of that I belong and that I can show my abilities in a lot of different ways on the field, like I was saying. So have that mindset and trust myself out there.
Obviously, 3 weeks before spring training, so things can change. But right now, very few positions are solidified for next year. What was the biggest thing that you learned last year, and how are you going to carry that into your campaign for center field this year?
That's a great question, because I think it was the same conversation last year of, you got to be ready for anything and you got to be ready to fill a role. So I think I was prepared, as soon as I got to spring training for that. And that was the conversation, as soon as I got there last year. So you just got to be ready for anything. And I think you got to keep that same mentality even for this year. And, obviously I was able to be up here for a good amount of time last year for the whole year and able to perform pretty well and show why I felt like I deserved to be up here, and I think you got to keep that that same mindset of trusting your abilities and I think that goes into spring training this year, going out there and competing and like I said, just doing whatever I can.
Mike, when you got away from it this off season and really thought about it, how satisfying was it to be able, to get an opportunity and then prove that you could be one of the best center fielders in baseball defensively?
Yeah, it's great. It was great going out there and proving it for sure. I mean, I knew I had it in me. You just got to trust yourself and go out and do it and not try to think about it too much and just go out there carefree and be an athlete and try to play, the best version of the game that you can. And it was nice to be in the role that I was in, to be able to, try to help the team in a lot of different ways, not just kind of one area. So I think that, in the off season, you want to continue to have that mindset. Obviously, you take a step back from it for a little bit and enjoy time with your families and everybody else. So that's important for sure. And I was able to do it for a little bit there. And it's been nice to get back into it. And you get to a point in January where, you're pretty much ready to go. So, we're definitely at that spot.
Like getting that sustained run at the big league level last season, what did you learn about what it looks like to make adjustments at the plate as the season goes along at that level?
Yeah, it's a huge part of it. I think that, we had a lot of great guys in that clubhouse, and we still do that, have done it for a long time and will continue to do it. So just bouncing ideas off them and understanding how they go through their business every day. That helped, and coaches too. So just a little bit of everything, and self-reflection for sure, making sure that I'm looking at what I need to look at and going over certain things. So I think there's a combination of a lot of things for sure. Also just kind of being a little bit smarter about it and understanding what level you're at, that everybody deserves to be here and everybody's good. So not trying to think about it too much, but also make those little adjustments as the year goes on.
Reflect on it, was there a point in the year where you can kind of recall it unlocking for you at the plate to be able to kind of take that next step as you did?
I don't know if there was like a certain point. I think that just consistently getting at bats definitely helped, but also just growing as a player a little bit. Being up here at this level, like I said, understanding how guys go through their business and how guys do their things. I think that helped in and itself, and just looking at that and being around for that every day. Little things like that, make a big difference for younger guys like me and guys that haven't been, in the big leagues for a long time. I think that those little things help.
Mike,
pick yesterday was talking about sort of that competition of trying to get better, and obviously seeing a guy like you playing the way you did. What has that dynamic been like, and what do you think it's going to be like going in the spring? Both of you guys obviously have had a lot of similar talents in that same sort of position.
Yeah, I think it's it's great for both of us to compete, and I think it's great in general just to go out there and take care of your business and put your best foot forward. I think that's what we're both going to do, and however it's going to work out, it's going to work out. That's kind of out of our control. So I think that obviously me and him, have spent a lot of time together and know each other very well, and we're close. So I think that understanding what we can bring to the table is important, and I think we're going to both go out there and do that, and it's going to work out for itself for sure.
Mike, you got a brother in the Pirates system. How do you two what's that relationship like with your brother? Do you guys push each other a lot, or is it more supportive with one another and kind of a soundboard, or is it kind of like a combination of everything?
Yeah, it's great. It's one of my favorite things about this whole thing is that he plays and I get to spend a lot of time with him in the off season. We get a chance to live together down in Florida, so it's definitely special to kind of go out and get to work in the off season every day with him. And obviously I talk to him during the season too. Not try to talk to him too much, but little things here and there, maybe take his mind off it a little bit and try not to overdo anything. But it's awesome to spend time with him and go back and forth, play some golf, watch some sports, and obviously get after it with our training too. So yeah, he had a really good year last year, was able to go to the fall league. So, he had success there, and it was important for him, I think, to do that and prove himself a little bit. And I think he's going to be looking forward to this spring training too and getting after it.
Between the two of you, who's the better outfielder?
Oh man, you're only going to get one answer from me. That's me. But I don't know. He might give you a different answer if you ask him. But nah, he's been really good out there. He's been playing all three positions. So I think he'll continue to do that. And it's always nice to be with him for sure.
Do you have any interesting interactions or with family or friends who, man, I saw you on Sports Center, or maybe you're stuck this time? Like, you went back home as a major leaguer this time. Was it any different?
Yeah, not really. I think that I have my group of friends and family that I've always been close with, and they understand what I do every day and understand where I'm kind of coming from. Obviously, it was a little different after this year because of being up in the big leagues and more or less making a name for myself to a certain extent. But now I think that my circle's pretty small, so I don't they understand what goes on, and it's always good to like I said, take a step back from it and enjoy my time at home, and then especially with the holidays and stuff too. It's always nice.
Eagles?
Oh yeah, Eagles by a million. We'll see. It should be a good game today, and I know it's snowing out there today, so I think that'll help them a little bit. Yeah. Thank you guys. Yep.